Okay, and the lease specifies what has been sold. It will demise premises probably in the lease. The demise means what has been sold. And because you've been sold your flat through the front door, it's all down to you. The repairs to the demise are all down to you as leaseholder. The landlord is usually responsible for everything else. Certainly the structure, the fabric of the building, all the mechanical and electrical items are down to the landlord. But whilst the landlord has responsibility, they will recharge all of those costs back through the service charge. There are usually, often, there are two sides to the lease. So there will be a part of the lease that talks about the landlord's responsibilities to do the cleaning and the grounds maintenance and repairs and maintenance and buildings insurance, etc., etc., etc. And then there'll be another side of the lease that talks about the leaseholder. In fact, it may even talk about tenant, because leaseholders are under the statutory guidelines a tenant. But on a very long tenancy agreement, 125-year tenancy agreement. But this other side of the lease, where it will talk about the leaseholder or lessee or tenant, it will say that they are responsible to meet the landlord's costs of doing whatever they're obliged to do it on the other side of the lease. So there's usually two sides. So the landlord repairing promises, covenants, responsibilities. Typically, the wording in a lease contain, repair, redecorate the main structure and the common parts. Common parts are those parts that leaseholders use with other people in the block or the estate. If the estate is referred to in the lease, then any repairs and maintenance to the estate will again be the responsibility of the landlord, and again those costs will be recharged through the lease, through the service charge. If you hold a lease that's pre-1986, a Southampton lease that was created pre-1986, I've been given copies of a few of the standard leases, so they may be slight variations, but these are the standard leases. Clause 5 within the lease talks about Southampton repairing, redecorating, and then lists A to D the main structure and exterior of the building, including the foundations, window frames, gutters, rainwater and external pipes. B, conduits, they're the gas and the wires and the cables that go through the building, where they're shared by more than one occupier. So if there are pipes, etc., that only serve your property, then you are responsible for it. If those conduits serve more than one resident in the building, it will be down to the landlord, but again, costs are recharged through the service charge. C, the common parts, as I say, they're the common parts like the passageways, the stairs, the landings, anything that's used in common with somebody else in the block or the estate. Mechanical and electrical lift, if there is one. So the lease, the clause 5 of that particular lease talks about the lift, if there is one. And external redecoration. And then schedule 4 of that same lease gives you a little bit more detailed description of the lease. Post 1986 lease, the responsibilities are contained scheduled, very comprehensive, and it's split into 3 distinct parts. A, the routine annual charges such as the cleaning, the gardening, etc. And B, modernisation, major repairs and structural defects. And then C, specifically talking about improvement works. Again, these are the landlord's repairing covenants. Your repairing covenants. Remember, you've got a full repairing lease. Okay, so everything through the door. Plus, a little bit more meat on the bone, as it were. So the pre-1986 lease under clause 4, if you do have that, it will go on to say, keep the demised premises, that's demised, what you've been sold, demised premises, including sewers, drains, pipes, cables, wires, etc. Those conduits I was referring to, in good tenantable repair and condition. And they are those conduits where they're serving the leaseholder flat only, only your flat. The lease also goes to talk about allowing the council access to inspect that you've done what you should be doing, and if necessary, if you haven't been doing what you should be doing, for the council to have access to do what you should have been doing, to repair. It also talks about structural alterations and the fact that leaseholders can't carry out any structural alterations within the property without Southampton's written consent. The post-1986 lease, those covenants are contained in the second schedule, the leaseholder covenants contained in the second schedule, pretty similar actually to the 1986 lease. Still, there's consistency there. It also goes on within the first schedule to talk about keeping the flat in good state of repair, decoration and cleanliness. And in the second schedule that I've just referred to previously, to maintain those conduits that we talked about, that's the wires and the pipes, same as for the pre-1986 lease. So if going back to that bullet above, keep the demised premises, including those conduits, in good tenantable repair and condition. And then the access rights, again, for inspection or repair by the landlord, the same as the pre-1986 lease. Section 20, most of you are familiar now, particularly if you've been a leaseholder with Southampton or indeed a leaseholder, you've probably had Section 20 notices sent to you, and you probably thought, these are very legalistic, we have to go through all of this. What's it all about, Alfie? So let's see what Section 20 is all about. So Section 20, what is it about? It's about the fact that landlords must consult with people who they pass on a bill for works that they've carried out or services that they've bought or about to buy. So they need to have a conversation with you. When I'm delivering training to practitioners in housing associations and councils, I actually say it isn't, forget this word consultation, it's actually having a conversation with people, being courteous, telling them what work you're going to do and the fact that, sorry, but ultimately you're going to have to pay for it. But this is what we're proposing. This is who we're thinking of choosing. What do you think about it? Ask us some questions. Tell us what your thoughts are. Consultation, however, doesn't mean that when they do, or Southampton or the land does, provide you with an outline of what they're proposing, that doesn't mean to say that you as a leaseholder can necessarily stop that work. Southampton and other landlords have professional, experienced members of staff, surveyors, etc., who have done their surveys, have got the, I use the word intelligence, meaning the background to the number of repairs that they've carried out on a particular thing, particular item or part of the building, that now think, well, instead of just repairing it on a almost patch repair basis, I think we need to change it. I think we need to replace it. That background data that dictates, they have the stock condition surveys and information that supports the reason why they need to do what they need to do. But the consultation when it was introduced in 1985, enabled the people who were ultimately going to pay for those works to be on the same page as the landlord. Before it was introduced, if we come to the bullet that talks about why consultation is now necessary, before it was introduced in 1985, landlords, the bad landlords, would just do what the hell they wanted, and the leaseholders didn't know what works had been done. And the first thing they knew about the work was when they came home from work to find scaffolding around the building, and a few weeks later they get a big bill. That was why Section 20 was introduced, to stop that, to stop the bad landlords and to bring leaseholders onto the same page as the landlord. So now leaseholders know what's been proposed, know how much it's going to cost, and in due course when the works are going to be carried out, and can make comments to the landlord. It's changed, the cost limits and the number of notices have changed since the introduction of Section 20 in 1985. New regulations were put in place in 2003 following the 2002 Common Hold and Leasehold Reform Act. The objective of consultation is to bring you leaseholders onto the same page as the landlord, and to open up that two-way conversation. For me, it's a conversation, okay? So what does Section 20 actually cover? What works does it cover? We have two sets. It's qualifying works, I'll come on to that in a moment, and find long-term agreement, called quilters. So what are qualifying works? Basically repairs. Yeah, we bandy around, or local authorities and housing associations will bandy the word major work. Post-1986 lease specifically mentions major works as a category of works. The pre-1986 lease doesn't talk about major works. And in fact, for me, it's just works, because if any repair or maintenance work is carried out and the resultant bill to any one leaseholder is more than £250, then Section 20 should be carried out. And so it doesn't have to be major works. It can actually be day-to-day routine works. And it just so happens, depending on the numbers that the bill is going to be split amongst, it could actually result in a bill to any one leaseholder of more than £250, and Section 20 should have been carried out. It doesn't necessarily have to be major. Okay, so that's qualifying works, repairs and maintenance to you and I. Qualifying long-term agreements, they are agreements that Southampton may enter into with a contractor for more than a year. And the reason they become qualifying for the purposes of Section 20 and why they would have to consult with you is if the contract's more than a year and it has to be an and the resultant cost in any financial year for that contract will result in a bill to any one leaseholder of more than £100. So if we think of things like cleaning or gardening, could be buildings insurance, it could actually be responsive repairs. So all of those little repairs in the year, when added up, they come to more than £100 to just one leaseholder, and the contract's more than 12 months, then they will need to consult with you before entering into the agreement. I'm going to give you a very handy website. It's actually a website that's on Southampton's website as a link too, but I will give it to you again. It's in the slides and you're going to get the slides at the end of the session or through the post. So 5 sets of regulations for Section 20. Regulations, Schedule 1 is where the qualifying long-term agreement that they are proposing to enter into has to be advertised, and this is an interesting one, has to be advertised as a public notice. Sorry, no public notice. Schedule 2 is where it does have to be advertised as a public notice. What's a public notice? A public notice is one where if the value limit is for works more than £4 million or for services more than £189,000, Southampton is bound by procurement regulations to open up the tendering process to currently all of the contractors in Europe. We're in Brexit, we've Brexited now, so there will be an amendment to that, but that's currently as we speak. So when I give you the website that I'm going to, if you're interested, that's the website where you'll find that nuance, that change since we Brexited. So that's qualifying long-term agreements, depending on the value, may have to be advertised as a public notice or otherwise. If Southampton have entered into a qualifying long-term agreement for day-to-day repairs, and then one of those repairs is likely to result in a bill of more than £250 because it's qualifying works, then there's a Schedule 3 notice. We're going to look at notices shortly. If they're not in a qualifying long-term agreement, they're just basic tendered works, then depending if it's above a value limit or below a value limit, certain value limit will dictate whether it's a Schedule 4.1 or Schedule 4.2 and whether it's had to be advertised as a public notice. Just looking at that in a little bit more detail, under their repairs and maintenance, this particular slide is looking at qualifying works which don't fall within a public notice being the works where a bill to any one leaseholder is going to be more than £250, and there is a minimum of 2 stages. You will receive 2 notices, potentially 3. The first notice is a notice of intention, i.e. Southampton saying we're intending to carry out works, and they'll detail the works. They'll then say why the works are necessary in their view, and they'll then give you an opportunity to make any observations about the works. Okay, they have to give you a minimum of 30 days from the date of the notice, and they will say on the notice when that expiry of the 30 days ends. Within that particular notice, because it is one that doesn't have to be advertised as a public notice, they have to invite you, if you want to nominate a contractor. I would hope that in that pack, they tell you that if you do want to nominate a contractor, they will give you the criteria that your contractor that you want to nominate has to meet in order for them to invite a tender from your nominated contractor. There will be a certain minimum criteria before they will take anybody onto their approval list, such things as usually public liability insurance, professional indemnity insurance, which is quite a hefty amount. They'll probably want to look at the financial integrity of the contractor to make sure they don't go bust the week after they've appointed them. They'll want to make sure that they're accredited to trade organisations, recognised trade organisations. They'll probably want to have equal opportunity policies, health and safety policies, and probably some other minimum criteria before your contractor will be invited to tender. Hopefully that's in the pack. The notice of intention should also give you an opportunity to write in and request a copy of the specification, or to come into a specific office between certain hours to inspect the specification. It can be either or. So that's the notice of intention, and once that 30 days has expired, they will then go out, get the tenders, have prepare the tenders and send you a notice of proposal. They've got to get a minimum of 2 tenders, by the way, and then they will prepare a notice of those tenders that they've received, and you will then get another notice. It'll also give you another 30 days to make any further observations about the tenders, about the costs, the tender costs, and to so send those observations in. You'll be given the expiry date of the 30 days. At the end of that process, then if they haven't chosen a nominated contractor, or if they haven't chosen the cheapest, then a third notice is required to notify you why they haven't chosen a nominated contractor or why they haven't chosen the cheapest. If there are any recognised tenants or residents association, all of these notices, the notice of intention and the notice of proposal, has to be sent to them as well. If you've written in with a proposal, then Southampton is required to respond to you within 21 days of your proposal. If a number of proposals have been sent in at the first stage, at the notice of intention stage, when they send the notice of proposals, they must tell you what observations were received and what their response was. They don't tell you who wrote in the observation, they just tell you what the observation was and what their response was. If Southampton don't follow the correct procedures, and depending on what part of the procedures they didn't follow, then if the matter is taken to a tribunal, depending on which I they didn't dot or which T they didn't cross, will dictate whether they have to limit the recharge to the leaseholders. And there's a lot of case law around organisations being limited or not limited or having to pay compensation, lots of different reasons, different circumstances. So all landlords, because they just don't know if they would have to pay compensation or limited or otherwise, they really endeavour to get it right and to not, you know, to cross all the T's and to dot all the I's. That's for qualifying works. Similar procedure for the qualifying agreement. Similar, so a notice of intention, again outlining what the agreement they're proposing to enter into, why they feel they want to enter into the agreement, again giving 30 days observation period, inviting observations, saying when that 30 days expires, giving an opportunity to look at specification as before, and if it's an agreement that didn't have to be advertised as a public notice, again they invite you to nominate your own contractor. They have to get a minimum of 2 tenders. Once they've got those 2 tenders, they prepare a notice of proposals, exactly like the qualifying works. If they've gone to them 2 tenderers, contractors, they've gone for 3, then the proposal should have all 3 on them, but certainly they've got to have regard within that 21 days to any observations received. And if they haven't used a nominated contractor or the cheapest, then a third notice is required, that notification of reasons. And again, all notices must be sent to the recognised tenants association or recognised residents association if one's in place. And if they don't follow the procedures, they may limit the amount that can be recharged. Qualifying works under a qualifying long-term agreement. Remember I said Southampton may enter into a long-term agreement with a contractor to do all of their responsive repairs. And then hey-ho, they come across a repair that is now going to result in, one repair is going to result in a bill to any one leaseholder of more than £250. But they've already carried out the consultation to get the contractor's already been chosen on that previous consultation. So this is a schedule 3. They're not inviting a contractor because it's already been chosen. And it's purely one notice. It's a notice of intention that says we're intending to carry out these works and these are why. They still have to invite observation, but they just proceed the work with the contractor that's in place. Again, all notices go to the Recognised Tenants Association or Recognised Residents Association, and if they don't do it properly, again, they may be limited. If Southampton come across emergency works, emergency works, or let's say, for example, they've started some work, so they've got the scaffolding up, not all their cherry picker or whatever, and they've come along to do something, and they've discovered further work, and what do? Do they strike the scaffolding, i.e. take all the scaffolding down, which is going to delay the work, flipping great big holes in the roof, and if they delay the work and do that, then somebody's going to suffer, and the contractor might put the prices up and not hold to the prices that they've given already. So they're in a bit of a dilemma, caught between a rock and a hard place. They can ask for dispensation. So they can go to the tribunal and ask for dispensation, either for emergency works. Look, we need to do this work now. We haven't got time to wait for this 30 days and 30 days. We need to just get up and do it now. They can write to you, the leaseholders, and say, this is what we've got to do and why. We've got to ask that the tribunal allow us to dispense with all of the consultation because we ain't got time to do it. And then just cross their fingers that the tribunal will give them dispensation, and therefore they can then recharge the full cost of the works. So they can use dispensation application in various ways, if it's an emergency or if additional works have been identified. This website here is an excellent website for all of you people in the room. This is your website. This used to be a website that was one that mainly practitioners used, I'll be honest. I used to go into it very frequently. I'd email or I'd telephone, and you'd get solicitors at the end of the email or at the end of the phone. And it used to be free for practitioners. It's not free now for practitioners, but it is for you. And it isn't just about the issues that we're talking about today, and it isn't just about the issues about tomorrow either. It's for anything leasehold. So I know tomorrow we're looking at lease extensions. There's a whole host of information on this website, free. Yeah, free to have a look there on the website, downloadable publications, everything I've just mentioned about section 20, it's there. There's a whole publication, local authorities to follow and for you to see. It's all there, okay? But it goes much further than that. It's talking about current legislation around lease extensions, around enfranchisement, about your rights, what you can do, what the landlord should be doing. Yeah, so I would really urge you to spend some time looking at that website. It's excellent, it really is. And if you've got an issue, you can email the Lease Advisory Service, you can pick up a phone to them, and they will get back to you for free. They won't with me now, unfortunately, but they will with you. Okay. How can section 20, how can Southampton do more than purely the section 20? And often I will talk to organisations and say, look, if you haven't dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, what else have you put in place that if you should end up at a tribunal, the tribunal will look at you in a bit of a better light than had you not done other things? Remember, it is a conversation that can be assisted. So what I would be saying to Southampton is, can you put information on your website that lets leaseholders know what's coming in the future? Can you give them a 5-year rolling programme of works? Southampton have got the stock condition information. Southampton know what they're doing over a period of time. Why not tell you, so that you can start saving the pennies necessary? So I gather that Southampton do this. This is on their website. So they do say what works are being anticipated, planned works, when the start on site date is, estimated completion date. Where they can, they'll give indicative costs. There are links for the blocks and the estates, and if necessary and relevant, they will put photographs on the website. Depending on the size of the contract and the number of people affected by it and the value of the contract, then on request, and this is up to you, on request they will meet. They will have a meeting with residents. That's the end of the slide. I know, Stephen, I haven't forgotten you. You'll be the first up. That's the slides. So what I'm going to propose to do now is just to run through the questions that were submitted prior to the sessions. I'm going to stop the share and cover those questions first, and then I'll come to those people who've already raised their hands. So let me just stop the share. Okay, lovely to see you all back. When I put the slides up, by the way, all I see are 2 or 3 faces at the side. I don't see you all, and now I can see you all your lovely faces. So let me come to the first questions submitted here. So these are, we had 3 questions, some with multiple parts to them. So this is the first one that came through. Responsibility for front doors, asking who's responsible for the front doors, the flat front door, the repair and replacement. So response from Southampton, and as I mentioned, and you picked up through the lease, when I mentioned about the lease, leaseholders are responsible for the repair and replacement of the front door of the property. Second part of that question that was submitted, how to make an insurance claim for water ingress from void above flat. So Southampton have said insurance claims should be directed to Ocasso's claims handling team. By the way, you're going to get all of these through the post, all of the questions and answers. Ocasso's claims handling team, the details can be found on the Southampton website. It's southampton.gov.uk/housing/homeowners. Now the question, I have a flat and the safety glass is cracked in between the 2 sections. Am I able to change it, or does that come under the building structure and not my responsibility? Response from Southampton, window frames, fixtures and fittings are the council's responsibility to repair and maintain. The glass glazing is the leaseholders. If a leaseholder wants to replace the windows in the property, they must first request formal permission via the online request form, because it's their own alteration or works that is not that generally their responsibility. So the windows must be like for like replacements. In other words, they cannot be different to all of the others in the block. And when the work is complete, they must send Southampton a copy of the FENSA, F-E-N-S-A certificate, which all contractors, if they're window contractors, must supply. If the council later undertakes a programme of renewing windows in a block, those properties where the windows have been changed with Southampton's permission and holding a valid FENSA certificate or within the warranty period will be exempt. Another query on that same question, if I want to drill a hole in the wall to install a cooker extraction fan, do I need to seek approval? Response from Southampton, information on making home improvements and when you're required to ask for permission can be found on the website, the Southampton.gov.uk website. It's your home /repairs /improvements. As a general rule, any work of a structural nature or anything which will affect the outward aspect of the block will require permission. Especially crucial in blocks with external wall insulation, as damage made to the insulation can be very costly to repair. So that's an extra note on that one. Final few questions before we open it to the floor. How can a leaseholder replace windows? And I think we've already covered that one. Who pays for the damages of February's 2020 storm, i.e. the roof cladding? So response from Southampton, it depends on the damage caused and whether a claim has been raised through the building's insurance. So a bit more information on which block the question relates to, so that Southampton can get back to the individual leaseholder that raised that question. So if you contact Southampton outside of this meeting with a bit more information on the block, they'll be able to respond directly to you. And finally, big items by the bins, not really repair and maintenance query, but it's attached to those other previous ones. So big items being left by the bins, somehow it gets removed. Who pays for it? You'll be comforted to know that leaseholders are not charged for bulk rubbish removal. Those are costs that are covered by the General Housing Fund. So your council tax, basically. Okay, so they're the queries that were submitted before. So Stephen, you were first with your hand up. By the way, the hand reaction is, if you go to the bottom bar, if you hover with your mouse at the bottom, there's something called reactions there. And one of the options is a hand raise. So I'm going to go to Stephen first. So Stephen, if you could unmute yourself and ask your question, fire away.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me first of all, Jackie?
I can't hear you.
Okay, Jackie, I'll try again. Is that any good?
No, you're going to have to shout louder.
Jackie, can you hear me now? Okay, good. My question relates to the acceptable time for an insurance claim that we put in against the council. I'm sure that you cannot comment on individual cases, but I'd like to know what sort of time frame I might expect from the lodging of a claim until a resolution is met one way or the other. It's been a year for me now, and so it seems a little unusual.
I can't comment. I don't know what your claim is about. I don't know how OCASO work. A year does seem an awful long time, but as I say, it will be probably dependent on the nature of your claim, any investigation work. I don't know whether, Rosemary, you want to come in on that? Is Rosemary there?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, that is being dealt with. We've gone to our insurance team who manage the contract, and we will be coming back to you once we've had further information.
Rosemary, thank you very much. That's very kind.
Thanks, Rosemary. Mr. Brown.
Peter, yeah.
Peter, sorry.
Hi, yeah, I've got two questions really, fairly well related, and listening to you on section 20. What I'm interested in, clarity of language. Now, I've consulted with lots of leaseholders following the section 20, for instance, the balconies and the roof. And the language is very, very legalistic. It is virtually unintelligible to most people without a knowledge of contract law. And the second thing is that there are no costs stated on the front. There is a spreadsheet on the back, which if you're an accountant and know which VAT applies to, which parts of VAT doesn't apply to, and you can add them all together, you can then work out by following down and finding out which block of flats you might be in and which various other criteria, you can calculate an amount. And in fact, 17 leaseholders came to me to ask how much it was going to cost them because they hadn't got a clue. And I went back to the council and said, this is the situation. And they said, sorry, we're not going to change it. That is the information you get, because that is all we're required to do under section 20. And I said, why can't you just put on the front page an estimate that tells what the leaseholder is about to expect, just as an estimate on the front? But no, they said they're not going to change it.
Okay, well, maybe Southampton want to close their ears at this point while I talk about what I would expect as a leaseholder. I'd be expecting pretty much what you've said, Peter, sorry. The nature of section 20 is very legalistic, but when I'm training with practitioners, I say, put something on the cover. Yes, you might want to. The thing about those notices, those section 20 notices, they can be, if people choose to put a bit of effort into it, they can be very Janet and John. You know, they don't need to be as legalistic. There are certain things that have to be in there, the things like giving the 30 days notice, saying the expiry, saying why the works are necessary, saying what the works are. Those are things that need to be there, inviting a contract. There are certain things that need to be in there, but outside of that, it can be as Janet and John as it likes. My son actually phoned me earlier this week. He's a shared owner in a house, but he's classed as a leaseholder. So he's received a section 20 notice, and he phoned me and said, Mum, what does all this mean? It's got section 20, regulation 151, blah, blah, whole big heading before it actually got into the substance of the letter. Now, fortunately, I could explain it to him. So I'm on your page, Peter, in that, yes, I would like to have those section 20 notices made a little bit more Janet and John, and that's not meant to be disrespectful to anybody in the room. It's what I'm trying to say is to take out the legalistic wording, because you don't need that.
It just needs a covering. It just needs a covering front page. That's all. The legal jargon can all stay there. That's fine. But we need an explanation on the front page. End of.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. Okay. Any other questions from anybody? Tanya, did you raise your?
Yeah,
great.
I did.
Brilliant.
Hi, Jackie. Nice to meet you. Thank you for making the time to be here this evening. My question was about the. I've obviously got questions to raise tomorrow. I can save those. But the question was, you said a little bit earlier that in the windows, the glass is the leaseholder's responsibility, and the window and frames is the council's responsibility. Now, I had to pay, I think it was £850 to have the actual frame replaced in my bathroom, because when I contacted the council, they said that they had no records, because they'd been moved to a different department, that they had no, they couldn't give me a number for the frame to do the replacement. And they said that it wasn't their responsibility.
Would you like to pick that up, Rosemary?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can only apologise for that. We do have a separate repairs team which did manage all of the repairs that come through, and we have informed them of the leaseholder's responsibilities with regards to the windows and with the rest of the properties as well. So I'm very sorry you've been given incorrect information then.
It was so difficult.
Back to us to check.
It was so difficult.
So you've paid for it, Tanya, yourself?
It was so difficult to sort it out, because like you said, I had to get certificates that improvements had never been asked for before, and chase all around the company. That many times I contacted the council in relation to this, and they said it was solely my responsibility.
So I can only apologise for that. It wasn't passed through to us, and obviously we had no knowledge of it. Otherwise, we would have informed them that they needed to get that sorted out and repaired.
Who would I need to discuss about that in future? Who would I need to contact to discuss that? If I had another
work that's already taken place.
No, this is if I had a new problem with another window frame.
You'd need to put it through to repairs still in the first place. But if they came back to you and said, no, it's your responsibility, you can come to us and we can go back to them again. But they should all know now, and we have been meeting with the contact centre team regularly for the last year. We've been having regular meetings with them to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all giving out the same information.
Okay, and can I ask one last question, because I missed the start of this meeting, so I was at work. So which department are you, please, Rosemary?
I'm in Leasehold Services.
Okay, because it's difficult to get hold of Leasehold Services, as probably everybody on the call knows.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are both working from home at the moment, and we are having a lot of problems with our phone lines. Again, we can only apologise for that, but we have got that logged. But at the moment, we cannot take phone calls at home until we get this phone line sorted out. But you can email us, and we are obviously both on email all day, so we can come back to you as soon as we see anything come through.
Okay, thank you.
I have got one final slide before you all leave, but that I'm not saying chucking you out yet because we've still got some time to go. That was more a reminder to myself to put the final slide up than anything else. Any other questions? Sorry, Tanya, can I just ask you something? So have you replaced the window?
Yeah, I've had the whole window replaced, and it was about £850, and it was because it wouldn't close.
Right, so presumably Southampton will just pay that bill and that will just add through to the service charge.
Rosemary said that won't happen, because it's retrospective. I've just had to pay for that.
Okay. Stephen?
Yes. One more question from me, please.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
This aspect of the window frames is very interesting. I haven't got any issues with window frames, but I wonder, does the same thing apply to door frames?
Right, door frames to the flat.
Yes.
Yeah, door frames to the flat. Rosemary, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm just going to put you on mute, actually. I could hear myself coming through your mic. Door frames to the flat are usually the responsibility of the landlord. It's a bizarre one. The front door is usually the responsibility of the leaseholder, but the door frame is usually the landlord's responsibility. Is that the case at Southampton, Rosemary?
No, the door frame and the door is all leaseholders' responsibility. It all forms part of the same thing, the whole thing in this case.
It's an interesting one, that, Stephen, because landlords currently are really in a dilemma about flat doors, simply because it isn't their responsibility. And since Grenfell, any flat doors that open into an enclosed space, if they're not fire compliant, what do landlords do? Because it is not their responsibility. So they're really having difficulties around enforcing leaseholders to change their front doors, at possibly great expense to make it fire compliant. It's a conversation, interestingly enough, being held with the great, the good representatives of the government and the IRPN that I mentioned earlier, and everybody in leasehold management, because of this peculiar issue around ownership and enforcing people to take responsibility. Carmel. Carmel, unmute.
There we go. It's just a quick one with regards to doors in our properties. As we're leaseholders, do all of our rooms have to have doors? Because we moved in and no doors on half of our rooms, like our front room, our kitchen.
Building regulations usually require, certainly the kitchen would be required to have a door, and I suspect that the other rooms do too. You could phone up the council's building regulation department and ask that question, but certainly I know that kitchens will, just to stop the spread of fire. Yeah.
Okay.
And some building regulations, because building regulations certainly didn't used to be retrospective. I'm not sure about fire safety regulations, but building regulations didn't used to be. In my own experience, I know that was sure, but even now, it might be currently the case that some doors have to have fire closers, which are pretty ugly. I mean, people put them, you know, when people are refurbing or changing and adding stuff, they're told by the building regulation authority they've got to have fire closers. As soon as a big building regulator has been to see the fire closer is there, immediately they've walked out, they remove them because they're so flipping ugly. But yeah, certainly a kitchen would be needing to have a door on it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew, are you there? I can see your hand up, but I can't see you. You're on mute. If you're talking, you're on mute. Shall I unmute you? Unmute, Andrew. You had your hand up. But did you want to ask a question?
Right. Can you hear me now?
I can.
As we got Rosemary on, I'm not sure if I can make it tomorrow. I had a query for Rosemary. Under the leaseholder pack, LE1, LPE1, if you wanted to sell your flat, which should you would expect to hear within 3 to 8 weeks. Can Rosemary tell me what the current situation is with the City Council now? Because we have selling our apartment or flat, and it's now holding up the sale. So does Rosemary have any idea on the timescale of the LPE ones?
Yes, we aim to send them out within 4 weeks of receipt of payment. That hasn't changed. We are still keeping within those timelines. We are trying to get them out quicker than that, but we are only allowed to enter the office once a week to deal with paperwork. But we are trying our best to get these packs out within 4 weeks of receiving the payment.
Okay. Do you think there's any chance that you could check to see if mine's been sent out?
I can do that. If you can email me with the address, I can do that for you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Tracy Guthrie. Hello. Got questions?
Hi.
Hi.
Just a very quick question, keeping on with doors, but this time in the communal areas. If a door is damaged in the communal areas, who is responsible for that? So for example, we're a flat slot of 18. Would it be we have to pay 1/18 of that to be repaired, or is that solely the council's responsibility?
No, imagine the council will do it. They are responsible for the common parts, and that would be deemed to be the common parts because you're using the communal door with other people in the building. So the council take responsibility for it. But as I said before, you can just imagine that every cost that they spend is recharged through the service charge. So if you've got 18, it would be 1/18.
Okay, so if we've got a rowdy block, then we're going to get recharged, yeah?
Well, are you saying it's damage caused by right now? So is it damaged, and can you point the finger at who's damaged it? Because the council probably does operate a recharge policy, i.e. if you've got evidence that somebody's damaged it, then they can recharge that person who's caused the damage.
Right, okay,
I know
that's good.
I know it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
It is a tricky one when you're rubbing shoulders, living with your neighbours, and you know, and also what evidence might you have? You've probably not got CCTV, or you know, when a shop whistle blow. I know it's a tricky one.
Okay,
but,
no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Warner again. Hello, you're getting your money's worth, aren't you?
Thank you very much for indulging me. A third question, if I may. This comes back to the aspect, of course, of responsibility to ensure fire safety. I know, or I understand at the moment, that there is much discussion about dispersing the cost for the cladding, because originally it would be the leaseholder, I understand, who would bear responsibility for replacement of cladding. As that's now under discussion and it may not be the leaseholder, might the same thing happen with regard to fire doors? I wondered if anyone had heard anything about that.
I haven't heard it extended to fire doors. Local authorities, housing associations are, I'm just going to put you on silent, are being invited to apply for funding for cladding. Unfortunately, you know, the private sector are not so fortunate, although there has been funding for them as well. When it comes to fire doors, no, it hasn't extended to fire doors as yet. It's a big bill in itself, just with the cladding. So no, I haven't heard anything extended to fire doors or sprinklers or all of those added extras, unfortunately. Yeah. Any other questions on repairing responsibilities, section 20? No. Mr. iPhone. Yes, yes. Ali.
Yeah, hello, Jackie. Yeah, actually, I want to just ask you the question: is it the leaseholder responsible for, when the boiler is broken down?
Boiler in your property, individual boilers in your property is your responsibility. Yeah.
All right, because our boiler actually is right in the bedroom. Yeah. How about if you change it to the kitchen? I checked the other flats. Yeah, the boiler actually in the bedroom. In the kitchen, but our boiler right in our bedroom.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter where it's sited in your flat, as far as I'm concerned. If you remember, I was saying anything through the front door, you have been sold the flat. Once you've got through the front door and the front front door frame is your responsibility.
But if I want to change it to to the kitchen, move it from the.
Sorry, I misunderstood you. An alteration. You're asking if you can move, resite it.
The bedroom to the kitchen.
You'll need to write in to Southampton because that would be an alteration, and that would need recognised plumbers to do all of the works. But they will, if you write into Rosemary, she'll give you an outline of the procedure that you need to follow. But that would be an alteration. You will need written permission. Okay,
if you get the permission, is it I'm responsible to pay for it, or is it the council gonna pay for that?
You would pay for your own alteration.
Because I check all the flats, our neighbors, the boiler actually in the bedroom.
If you bought the flat, before you bought the flat, you will have had estate agent's details, and you would have had a survey. Your mortgage company would have arranged or required you to have had a survey, and it would have been identified as part of the survey the location of the boiler. So you bought it. There's an expression that's termed caveat emptor. It's Latin. It's buyer beware. So you have bought your flat as seen, as it were.
Yeah, actually, I asked them a couple of times. They said, we're gonna, report to the council, but they haven't back to me.
It isn't the council's responsibility, but you bought it as seen. If you want to now recite the boiler, that will be deemed to be an alteration, and therefore you will need their permission to do it.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have got a question from Alison Katz.
I wonder, can you tell me how Southampton City Council are getting on with the EWS1 forms for the cladding?
Probably the same as a lot of other local authorities, with great difficulty. But I'm going to let Rosemary answer that one, because they've really put a spanner in the works with these LP1 and 2. So Rosemary, over to you.
At this time, we do not have a approved contractor in place for the EWS1 reports. This is due to the fact that there is a nationwide shortage of qualified surveyors able to undertake them. However, we have got a workaround, whereas if your solicitor has a surveyor that they could recommend to us, we will investigate and check and see if they've got the right qualifications and take them on to do the reports. But at this time, we don't have anyone who has the time to undertake the reports, simply because of the enormous backlog around the country.
It really is a problem, isn't it?
So that nothing pending, nothing in the future that they're even going to be done. Is that right?
It will be done once we can get a contractor in place to do it, but unfortunately, the person we've looked to undertake the surveys has so many on their books that they can't fit us in, and they cannot give us any kind of timeline as to when they can fit us in.
Okay, so it might not even be this year.
We don't know. We just don't know at the moment, unfortunately. But as I say, if your solicitor has got a contractor that they know can undertake these surveys, we are happy to take recommendations, and we will check into them, and we'll be able to take them on to do them. But at this time, we're in the same boat with a lot of other landlords, as we just cannot get someone to undertake them for us, because there's not enough people qualified, and there's a huge demand.
And unfortunately, the mortgagees are being very, very risk averse. So it's almost holding up the property market, isn't it?
It is holding up. I can vouch for that. It absolutely is. And we've just lost a buyer because we didn't have the form, and he couldn't get a mortgage because we didn't have the EWS1 form. So we're completely stuck at the moment. We can't do anything.
Yeah, it really has stymied the property market. It's really unfortunate for an awful lot of people, you included. I'm sorry to hear that. Any other questions? Rosemary, I've got a question here. It's about section 20. Section 20 was carried out. I guess you'll probably want to know the details, so I'll email you later. But it's somebody who's trying to interact with the consultation, make observations, I think, for the proposed roof work last year, and had to do it within the 30 days, yeah. When I had no response, too much time lapsed and my opinion was disregarded. Not, sorry, I know who, I don't want to name you, but are you saying that you made the observation within the 30 days, or you made the observation within the 30 days and had no response? Because I'm not sure I'm understanding when I had no response, too much time lapsed.
Can I say something there, Jackie? Yeah. I think when we got those notices, the date that we received them and the date they were dated didn't match. That it was just a really tiny time frame. It was literally about a week to reply to it.
Oh. Well,
yeah.
You should, I mean, what I usually say to people is that there is a date on the letter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually say, don't keep to the 30 days, do 33 or 35 days from the date of the letter. And that allows for posting or bank holidays or weekends and what have you. So you're saying that your section 20, you got it one day. Obviously, it's going to be different than the day it's dated.
It's quite big jump. It was, it was a matter of at least a week, I think, because I was really shocked when I opened it and I thought, well, what's going on then? Are they just sending it out late deliberately?
Right, and then I wonder whether the question that I've got there is because, it's gone over that 30 days, but it was because it was received so late.
So that was me. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can. Yes.
You can. Fantastic.
Hi, Claire. I didn't know whether you wanted me to say your name. That's why I've been keeping you a secret.
Yes. So what happened from my experience was we received a letter. It probably was a little bit late, but I can't say for certain. and we were given 30 days to respond. Now it was a comedy of errors, to be honest. So initially the website with the section 20 details was misspelled. So I managed to find the website through Google, thank goodness. And I managed to scroll down all of these like tons of spreadsheets in order to find my address, to find out that it was going to cost, in my opinion, an extraordinary amount of money to fix the flat roof. So I immediately emailed the email address on the website to contact them about it. The email address on the website was also misspelled, so the email bounced back to me. Now, the second email address on there, which appeared to be correct, was correct. So I forwarded my initial email to them, and I got an out of office response saying that they would reply to me within 10 days. Then with coronavirus and all of the other things, this was January 2020, by the time coronavirus and everything else had happened, I thought maybe the last consultation that we were going to have with you guys was going to answer this question. And it didn't happen. It's been postponed to now. So, you know, I had no ability to consult with these people, and then every time lapsed and everything else, and so I had no way of being able to dispute it. And I've even spoken to Royston Smith about it. So if anybody else wants to talk to him about it as well, then please go ahead. But he's been more of a conduit of conversation than have any personal opinion on the matter, which has also been quite frustrating, to be honest. So all in all, I mean, so I've seen the website address you gave, which, I mean, maybe Lease Advice would be better suited, because they've clearly done a terrible job with giving us the information to begin with, and then with the 30-day time lapse. So as far as I can see, it appears that they are not fulfilling their legal responsibility within the time or the information or anything like that. So yeah,
obviously if you're disenchanted with anything that Southampton do, and you feel that you have a justifiable claim, then yes, your recourse would be to the tribunal. For me to talk to Southampton, I would be saying to Southampton, if you get a leaseholder who's disenchanted, rather than go to the tribunal, because for both parties, it's a very confrontational exercise. Southampton don't want to be at the tribunal. Actually, at the end of the day, that's not what you are setting out to do. What you want to do is to be satisfied that you've been heard, and the costs that you're being required to pay, you understand where they come from. You know, Southampton might have a very genuine reason where those costs have come from, but unless you get together and sit round a table, not literally, obviously, if you can't do that now, but sit round a table and know where each party, what information you want. Look, they're not, Southampton, I'll speak for Southampton, because for me, this is probably all local authorities and all housing associations, particularly where there are tenants and leaseholders side by side. So for the tenants, Southampton are picking up the bill. The tenants pay for it, by the way, in the rent, but at the end of the day, it's Southampton have got to get the rent and decide which is rent and which is for the repairs and maintenance. They've got to do the behind the scene, putting it into the money boxes. So when it comes to doing repairs and maintenance, they've got to make sure that that money box for the repairs and maintenance for tenants is sufficiently funded. With you, they just hand you a bill, but they've got more tenants generally than leaseholders, yeah? So they need to get value for money. They need to get a best deal, because it's they who have to make their money go a long way, yeah? So I can't imagine why Southampton would want to get a really expensive contract in place, because they're going to have to fork out for it as well. Yeah, they want to make sure that whatever work is carried out is good standard, good quality. They don't want the contractors to have to come back next week, because that means I have to pay for them again. So I just don't get the logic there. But that what they need to do with you and other leaseholders is to get that message across and show the procurement exercise, why they've chosen the contractor they've chosen. And there are reasons, you know, they don't just pluck them out of the sky. There are genuine reasons as to why they choose the contractors they do, but they need to get that message across to you for you to be satisfied that you're in good, safe hands. Yeah, so I would avoid the tribunal. I would have, there are other alternative dispute resolution processes that Southampton can follow. And you know what? I wouldn't even say follow one of them. I'd say, look, just meet with people and explain.
Right. So who do you think would be the best person to contact? Because I've not had a great deal of luck. So if you've got a magic email address, I'm all up for it.
Well, I haven't got a magic email address for Southampton, unless I don't know whether it's the asset people who would be best placed to explain to you the value, you know, the value of the contract, why it's so expensive, how the contract is being chosen, or whether it would be the leasehold department. I would probably say it shouldn't be the leasehold department. No disrespect to the leasehold department, but they do other things. They rely on the professional people, the experienced surveyors in the organisation, because that's what they do for their bread and butter. That's why they've been employed. The leasehold department are doing other things. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rosemary. Help me out here.
And that's correct. Although we can assist if you want information passed on, or if you want to contact us and say this is this is who you need to speak to. We can ensure that you are put in touch with the right people.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And then just on the subject of value for money, considering I mean, I'm terrible at spelling, so I was, you know, spelling errors I can kind of excuse to a certain extent. However, this was one letter with one email, with one website, sorry, and the admin costs were £908,000. So that's 15% of the overall £5 million budget. Now, if that can't stretch to a spell check, I don't feel like I'm getting value for money, and I don't think the city can feel like it's getting value for money. So even if it is, we're just thinking about ourselves as leaseholders, the rest of the city are kind of footing the bill to a certain extent. And I can't understand how, if you're going to spend almost £1 million, if you're going to spend £900,000 on admin, why can't you do these basic things and demonstrate to us that we are getting value for money?
Fair comment is what I would say there. I'm sure Rosemary's taking it on the chin and noting it, and will go and speak to the relevant people about that very point. Yeah,
it's already been fed back to them, and we've also rechecked the website as well, and we can confirm that all the email addresses on there are now correct.
Brilliant.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Claire, for your question. We've had another chat, actually. If you go into the chat, you can see the owners of flats in buildings without cladding will no longer need an EWS1 form to sell or remortgage their property, according to the Ministry of Housing from November last year. They're blocks without cladding, so they're very straightforward. Oh, Peter, you've got another question. You're getting your money's worth as well tonight. Go on.
Yes, actually, it was following up from Claire, and also something on the chat. We do have a Leaseholders Forum, which they had meetings 4 times a year. One of those meetings, for Claire, we actually have put in a major complaint about the administration charges of 15%. you know, and also the supervisory charges of 15% on major works, which we had various meetings which are minuted, and they came back to us and said there was no justification for the administration charge, because I asked them to itemize every single cost in the administration charge, and they couldn't do it, and we had that minuted at the meeting. And what then happened is that went up, and the man in charge at the top of the council said, I don't mind, I don't care what was agreed, that's not going to happen, you're still going to have to pay it. So that was where we got to on administration charges, even though they admitted that there were no charges there. They did say that in the supervisory charges, they put not just supervisory, but they added surveyors' costs, architects' fees, and various other things were added into the supervisory charge. And generally speaking, it would amount to around 10% of a major work that wasn't a small major work, but a large major work. But that was all. Because in my case, you know, with the balconies, we worked out it was something like £1.7 million of add-ons for leaseholders. And in actual fact, the costs were for our block were about 6,500, and the charge to leaseholders was £9,000. So yes, we have a major query in still about the administration charges, and it hasn't gone away. Unfortunately, we haven't had any meetings lately to actually take that up. So that will still be on the cards to take up again. And maybe if you, if we do have one of these meetings, Claire, you could be there as well, because your experience will count as well.
I've got a couple of things actually to say about admin charges. I'm just going to put you, Peter, on mute now, otherwise I'll hear myself coming through your thing. But before I do, we've got a question here. How do we know that tenants are charged the same as leasehold works? Well, you don't. They pay for, I'm hearing myself somewhere. Somebody's on, I'm not on mute. I don't know who it is. Can't see. You don't, except that tenants in their rent pay for repairs and maintenance. That's where the amount for the repairs and maintenance for tenants' properties comes from. When the works are carried out, they're given an equal split. So it's Southampton's headache to get the money that it represents each of the tenanted properties. It's not your headache. You're getting charged the same as they have to contribute for that property. But obviously they don't dip into their back pocket because they've been doing it in their weekly rent. Okay. Just a comment before I come back to you, Tracy, on your question, because you've got your hand up. But coming on to admin fees, it is generally lots of landlords do charge 15% on Section 20 major works. It's an interesting one. There is a shift with some landlords to actually have a sliding scale. So they charge 15% on low works that are a lower value, and then works on a higher value, it might go down to something as low as 8%. If you were to ask me personally, I don't think it should be a percentage at all. I think it should be a fixed fee based on what admin work is actually carried out.
Can I come back on that? It's in the actual lease agreement, they said it was 15%, but it's actually 15% on all the normal charges per year, and we don't have any problem with that at all. We know there's got to be an admin fee somewhere for running that for us, and so that wasn't an issue. It's on the major works, and in the actual lease agreements that we've got, it actually says on the main major works that it's administration charges as occurred. In other words, at cost. It doesn't say 15% on the big major works. It says 15% on the small, but not on the larger ones. And it says we should pay any administrative charges that occur. But we were saying, well, you know, have you got on that particular job £800,000 of administration charges? Then how many people have you actually employed to do this administration? And they couldn't justify it.
I'm kind of sorry, Rosemary, but I'm kind of on your page in the sense that, I for me, and I do say this to practitioners when I'm delivering the training, I say I just don't get why you can't just work out what time you spent on it. You know if somebody's going, you know how long it takes to prepare the Section 20 notices and stick them in an envelope. So that takes half a day. What does that cost? You know, if a surveyor's going down to look at a roof and spend half a day on site looking at what the contractors have done, what does that cost? You know how long when they come back to write up their report. You know, it's a bit like a solicitor who puts on a clock watch and they're timing how much time they spend. I can't see why that can't be done with Section 20 works. But hey, get me off my soapbox, because I can't personally change Southampton's policy. I know there are different ways around the country. I know an awful lot of landlords do charge 15% as well. Tracy, you've got a further question.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure if it has been sort of answered previously, but you just mentioned that the council tenants pay in their rent for repairs and maintenance, and we obviously pay it through our charges. Now, Peter mentioned, and I totally see where he's coming from because we had a shock, that the grass cutting, we got charged an extortionate amount to have the little piece of grass out of our front done. How do we find out that that cost has actually been shared with my neighbours who don't own their property? Because when you speak to my neighbours, their rent hasn't really gone up, or not to the extent that we've just had to pay our charge.
Okay, well, I can't comment about the other service charges. I can comment about repairs and maintenance because I know that's how it works. I can say that around the country, and it's generally council tenants, not housing association, but a lot of council tenants, they pay for other services in the rent as well as repairs and maintenance. Certainly buildings insurance is in the rent, repairs and maintenance is in the rent. There's Section 11, the 1985 Act, tenants pay in the rent. With cleaning and gardening, all of those other types of services, some local authorities have done what we call depooled them, i.e. taken them out and they're separate and they get a service charge in exactly the same way as leaseholders do. But other local authorities have only taken some services out of the rent and shown them separately. And other services are still included or pooled within the rent. So they're not as transparent. They're still paying for them, but they're in with the rent, some are out of the rent. So that's not an easy one to, and I don't know, I'm not here for Southampton's tenants on the other charges, but I know that's how they will definitely be recovering for repairs and maintenance.
So with no way to double check that everyone's being charged the same amount?
Well, what I can say is you're not paying more. Everything is equally split. Everything is equally split, but what you won't, if you spoke to your tenant next door, a neighbour next door who just happens to be a tenant, depending on Southampton, and I don't know what they do at Southampton, whether they pooled the gardening or depooled the gardening, your neighbour might turn around to you and say, I don't pay for gardening, because they don't get a service charge with gardening shown on it because it's in the rent. Doesn't mean they're not paying it, but it's hidden in the rent. And so they may think they're not paying it. That's how the best way to describe it, really.
Yeah, I suppose if my neighbours are saying, I don't know, my rent's £20 this month. Oh dear, yes, it's only gone up to £22. Yeah, we've just had a hefty service charge. That doesn't quite equate to what we've just been charged. So I suppose that was my question is, you know, how do we get the answer of how much did it truly cost, and are we all paying the same, tenants and council holders?
Yeah, I'd say I can't comment about.
Okay. Where would we find that information out? Do you know?
Rosemary may know. She may not know about the tenanted staff.
Yeah, it was used to be included in the rent as of this year. And obviously this still has to go to councillors, so we can't confirm any costs yet, but we are looking at de-pooling and bringing the tenants' service charges, they are going to be new service charges for them, and they are going to be coming up in line with leaseholders. However, there are restrictions from central government, which means we cannot raise them immediately, and we have to do it over a number of years. We're looking at raising them over 3 years. But again, this is all in the ether. We don't have any confirmed costs or anything at the moment, because it still has to go up to councillors first before we can confirm anything. But we can say that yes, it is being pooled in the rent at the moment. We are looking at de-pooling and probably raising service charges for tenants over a period of maybe 3 to 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? I've got one more slide. I must remember to put it up. I just want to know if you've got any more questions. We're coming almost to the end of the evening. No, if you do think of anything overnight and you're back in the room tomorrow, then I'm happy to pick up questions from this evening over tomorrow night as well. You may have a light bulb moment, you never know. Okay, so I'm going to put this last slide up just so information about the Leaseholder Forum. Peter, you've mentioned that you're on the forum. I wasn't aware of that. And so there is a place for you to go to have, you know, get involved with your tenure group, the leaseholders, the service for you. It's a forum that meets, you said it 4 times a year, Peter. I thought it was every 6 months, so forgive me if I've got that wrong.
It's actually just changed this year. It used to be 4 times a year.
Oh, right. Okay. So, but I mean, it's interesting because after this session, Deborah's going to send out, her email address is there, but Deborah's going to send out an evaluation form. And engaging tenant or leaseholder engagement is always a difficult one for landlords. They want to hear your voice. They want you to go along that journey of the service. And to date, before COVID rather, everybody used to be herded into a room that they really probably didn't want to do. You know, late at night after work, cold, wet, windy, what have you, crosses over with putting the children to bed or having your dinner, so that, you know, I'm just not going to bother. It was a real problem to get people talking. But, you know, we've got COVID, we've had to learn to live in a different way now. We're getting familiar with Zoom. And actually, you know, some of you have already got your glass of wine there, I'm sure. And you're nice and warm, and you haven't had to go on a bus or in a car and, you know, what have you. So maybe this is a new way forward. Anyway, an evaluation form is coming out to you. Southampton be really keen to hear about this new method. They might have to do both, people who like to still go into a room and others that rather Zoom. Okay, chaps and chapesses, I'm going to call it to a close, given that nobody's got any further queries. I hope you found it useful, thought-provoking. And as I say, if you do have a light bulb moment overnight and you think, damn it, I should have asked Jackie that, then if you're in the room tomorrow, more than happy to take it up that then. Okay, so have a good evening, and you haven't got far to go for your dinner, have you? Sort of kind of next door or into the next room or whatever. So stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you tomorrow, most of you. For anybody who's not turning up, I'll say stay safe, stay well. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.